My name is Amy Wolf, and I'm the general manager here at Holly Hunt. I co-manage with Brian Schrader, my counterpart in the back here, so we co-manage the showroom together, and we welcome you along with our entire team. We are so happy that you are here. We're so happy for the energy for Design Chicago. We're so excited for everything what everybody's doing in the design world. So we have been very busy here at Holly Hunt the past couple weeks. Our creative team has installed and moved around every single piece of furniture, given us a ton of new furniture, new wall covering, new lighting, tons of new product to see and explore. So we recently launched the HH40 collection, and we have several of those pieces in the showroom. And then we also have a beautiful new textile collection, and that is on display in our rug gallery. Gorgeous new wall covering that you see on all the walls, and also in our Holly Hunt wall covering gallery. So please stay and explore and enjoy and be inspired. We are here to help you. We are very excited. So I am going to pass the mic off to Mark Zaffron, our president, and he's going to introduce the panel and say a few words.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy. I just want to take a second. I know everyone in this room, I'm going to stand over here so I can see both sides. You know our team in Chicago. They are incredible. They will bend over backwards and do anything necessary to support you guys. I want to have a big round of applause for Amy, for Brian, for the whole Chicago team here. Thank you, guys. Thrilled to welcome you to our showroom. Welcome to Design Chicago. So excited to see everyone here. This is a milestone year for us. It's our 40th anniversary. And not only is it our 40th anniversary, but for all 40 years, we have been here at the Mart. That says a lot, right? What a partnership with the Mart. I love this design center. I love the city of Chicago because it is such a design powerhouse. I want to thank all of you that have been with us for 40 years or close to it. There are those of you who have been here from the beginning. I'm not going to give away anyone's age. Tom Stringer. Sorry. Or those of you who are just starting out and getting introduced to our portfolio. We are so grateful that you trust us with your projects. You trust us with your business. 40 years means a lot for us. We have evolved a lot as an organization, but there are certain things that still remain consistent, okay? Our commitment to making you look great in front of your clients, that has never wavered. Thank you very much, Holly Hunt, for teaching us all that. That maintains. Number two, our commitment to helping you grow your business. That's what Holly Hunt is about. Other companies out there may say they want to do it, but we walk the walk, and we mean it. Also, our commitment to supporting you and our commitment to inspiring you. In other words, our job is to make your job easier. And I know how difficult it is. I spent over 20 years on the other side of it doing what you do, running some of the most successful design firms in the country. I know it's not easy. I don't take any of it for granted. And I know how important it is that you have a resource like Holly Hunt to help you. I also know, coming from the other side of it, how important it is about working with you when you have to customize furniture, when you make things personal. It's the difference between exceptional firms and average firms. And Holly Hunt has always been there to support you during that, and that's what this esteemed panel is going to be talking about today, making it personal. I want to start with welcoming Jackie Terrebonne, a very close friend of mine, and a colleague. I just want to say, has anyone seen the new issue? Hands down, this is one of the best interior design magazines out there. And they're not paying me to say this, by the way. I got to tell you, like, it's not just the substance. I mean, every time I read these issues, I walk away with like a new nugget of information, whether it's about art or an emerging designer. But the other thing that strikes me about it is just look at like the production of it, right? The paper, the font, the coloring. This magazine is hands down one of the best ones in the industry. You do us very well, so thank you, Jackie. I appreciate that. Let me introduce Martin Horner, okay? Martin is principal of a design powerhouse here in Chicago. They do interior design, they do architecture, they do branding, they have product, they have exquisite classical design, all seen through a modern lens. We are very, very lucky to have him here today and to have his insight. Martin, thank you very much. Another powerhouse of Chicago design, none other than Tom Stringer. Tom Stringer and Partners. I encourage all of you, go onto the website. I was there the other day looking at some of their projects. They just posted his most recent project about a yacht they finished. It is exquisite. The textures, the scale, the layout. Tom, thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate it. My very close partner in crime here, Joanna Kornak, our executive creative director. Holly says herself, hi Holly, I see you there. Holly says herself to me, okay, I'm an editor. The secret has been the design and the eye behind Joanna Kornak. Joanna Kornak creates the look and feel that defines Holly Hunt, whether it's in our showrooms, whether it's our product, whether it's our advertising campaign. We'd be lost without her. So glad you're here. You guys have the A-team here today. So enjoy it, and thank you all again for coming. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. That was like a good, get the crowd warmed up kind of moment. I'm so thrilled to be here today at Holly Hunt. And being the editor of a design magazine, you get to do lots of glamorous things. There's going around the world to different design fairs. There's looking at beautiful homes, spending times with designers. There's so many glamorous things. But one of the least glamorous things is doing the fact sheets for each house that's in an issue. We'll have a junior editor goes through and puts a tiny number on every pillow, every table, every rug, and it's this very, very laborious process. But it's very interesting when you get the results back and you see who made all of these different pieces. And a name that comes up in almost every single home we do is Holly Hunt. And that's incredible, but what's even more incredible is that I don't always recognize the pieces. Joanna and I, she'll take me through the new collection, we'll walk through the whole New York showroom, see everything. We spent an hour doing this together, and it's just because there's so many different ways to customize it and how to reimagine it. It's really this chameleon-like quality to some of these pieces where they can live in all kinds of different settings and looks. So I think it's perfect that today is about making it personal. It's about customization, because I think no one does it better than you do here at Holly Hunt. So thank you. And Martin and Tom are experts at putting together special personal spaces that are truly unique. They cannot be copied in any way because of your vision, your creativity, and everything you put into those spaces. So I just want to start off by asking the question to each of you. Maybe Tom, you can start. What of all the customized pieces you've done, what was the one with the most impact? What was the biggest, are we really going to do this kind of piece?
Oh gosh, that's a tough one. It is. It's because it's a little bit of a story, but the toughest piece of design I've ever done was actually a pool pavilion that we decided, in order to be an authentic Balinese pool pavilion, actually needed to be built in Bali. But it needed to be, because it was in California, it had to be built to seismic code. So I had to build the steel frame, the stainless steel frame for the structure in the United States, ship it to Bali, have the building encased authentically, and then shipped back and reassembled. And it was a single piece of design, but it was, but we decided that if an American architect tried to design a Balinese pavilion, it's the wrong lens. There's just no cultural history there. There's no, how you can't fake that stuff. So just go for the real thing. And I think maybe that ties into right back into this kind of product. If you don't see what you want for a project, don't fake it. Create something really authentic.
Yeah. It's so true. And so when it was installed, was it just absolute magic?
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's everything everybody wanted it to be, right down to the handmade fish scale shingles on the roof, made of copper, and it's but the energy of it is tangible because it's truly authentic.
And Martin, how about for you?
Well, I think, for me, we were working down in Virgin Gorda, and it's an island, and we designed a house from the ground up, and everything was put onto a cargo ship, and literally they dropped the container on the beach. And there was no way to get it from the beach to the house, so they brought a bulldozer in, and they pulled it through, and you're thinking of millions of dollars of furniture and art. And they come, but then you have the locals helping us, and I remember pulling out paintings and just, encaustic pieces, and they were touching and feeling it. And you're like, this is like a $125,000 painting, and they're acting like it's a piece of, cardboard. So it was really challenging, and then we got the house all done, and it was terrific, and then the hurricane hit. And then we had to redo it again, and it was really something for our team to learn how to work on an island, how to work with another culture, and how to ship things into a country where everything was, when you needed to hang up a piece of art and you're out of the hanging tools, there was no place to go. There was no Home Depot next door, so it was always a challenge to do that. So working remotely on an island is something really tough.
But you got a dress rehearsal.
We got a dress rehearsal, and we got to do it again. So it was simple the second time, so it was easy.
And Joanna, what kind of custom, what's the piece that really stands apart for you, or really tested your team to the limits here?
I think my team gets tested daily.
Okay.
Hourly.
We have hourly. We have 15 showrooms, Holly Hunt owned, and 5 partner showrooms, and we're reimagining them every year. So there's a lot that goes into it, and taking the same product, our collections, and reimagining them for different cities. So in LA, we just opened our flagship showroom almost a year ago.
So beautiful.
And we are in a 1940s building where we had to there was this beautiful curved corner. The building's curved. And I thought, well, what can we do here? So we customized an omnibus Vladimir Kagan piece, and it is spectacular. So, but most of our pieces are customized. The wall covering in the front, the Gracie wall covering, is custom to this showroom, so in this market.
And I think we see that. Isn't
Did you
that
see it?
sofa? It comes up.
Okay.
Be on the lookout for it, because it is spectacular and
Chartreuse
it's so
green. Yeah.
perfect there. And clearly, I like chartreuse green, so I'm on board. I think a lot of customization, you think it's about like the designer's creativity and what can you dream up next, but it also comes down to client needs sometimes.
Right.
So, Martin, how do you work with the client's needs to customize pieces?
Well, every single client's separate and different. They have different needs and desires and dreams. So it's up for us to want to have a vision, but that vision is constantly changing and evolving. And you may have a vision in your head, and all of a sudden a client may come up and say, I want this instead. So you have to shift and pivot and go this way. And working with custom furniture makes it a lot easier, rather than something right out of a catalog. So you're allowed to play and explore different ways. So I think that's kind of the big thing, is being able to, when customers are pushing you, and they do. I mean, one day they have ideas. They are living in the home. I have a client recently who said, I don't care what you think, it's my home, I'm paying for it, it's mine, do what I want. Which is always challenging, especially when you have a different vision, but then in the end, it is their home. So we do have to work with them and what their aesthetic and what their desires are.
And how does that play out for you, Joanna?
For us, it's usually, clients coming in and asking. Just last week, I overheard a conversation where a client came in and said, I know this is really bad taste, but my clients like to put their feet on the cocktail table. I know it's bad, but I need a bigger cocktail table. I need it custom made.
Yeah.
So we sent it in to have that custom made. So we get drawings and the drawings for approval. Also, we get athletes, professional athletes whose bodies are tall or wide, and you have to customize sofas or dining tables or chairs to fit their needs.
That's pretty.
Yeah. Or their dog or their pets or whatever. If you want a Great Dane that's going to sleep on your bed at night, you need a big bed.
Yeah, I think it's actually just the extension of what we're trying to do as interior designers anyway, which is to create something bespoke for someone to live in. And I liken the customization of furnishings to, especially to male clients, to having a custom-made suit. Most of our clients live in that realm.
Right.
And I think I think in one way it's enabling for a client, and it invites a client to participate in the process. When you say, this is the idea of this thing, but we're going to morph it into this other thing that works better for us, or that works better for you, or that simply just appeals to you more. And I think when the designer is able to bring the client into that process, it enlivens the conversation, it enlivens the relationship. It gives a client a sense of control, and then it seems like everything flows after that. As long as I can always assure a client that we have complete control over the finish, or the diameter, or the shape of an arm. Holly Hunt is making, for a project in Palm Desert for me, they just finished prototyping, it's the shadow dining chair.
Correct.
But my client wanted to hang out at the table with their guests for a long time after dinner. And she said, I just would feel better if I had an armrest.
Yeah.
And so, presto changeo,
Right.
That's amazing.
there's a new shadow dining chair with an arm coming in.
You want an armrest? You got
Got
it.
it, yeah. But then the client also is saying, they feel like really enabled, right?
Right,
Like,
right.
I've asked for something, you're responding to me at the highest level, and I'm getting what I want.
Right.
And I guess the nice part of that is also when you have client involvement at that level, the consideration about exactly what the price tag is seems to vanish.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to
Just the
say
pay.
something about your showroom, because I had a client who had never done a custom house. He was the CEO of a major corporation, and we brought him to the showroom. And he and his wife had never shopped before. And we brought him to Holly Hunt, and he came through and his eyeballs were huge. And he was basically a nerd, let's just say that. And he was walking through, and we're walking out of the showroom after seeing here, and he's dancing, and he's doing this, and he goes, I know my look, and I'm like, well, what's your look? He goes, it's a Holly Hunt look. And the showroom, it just goes to show that the beauty of the showroom is so important, because we've been inspired as a young designer. We come here to see your product and always changing it. I think it's so important to have that. And to take what you do for the show, I look at this photo, it's stunning. First I thought this was a home, and that's a showroom. So,
It's a showroom.
Congratulations on
Thank
your
you, thank
work
you.
there.
But we're here to inspire our
Yes.
architects, designers, design aficionados, and I want them to feel something when they walk into our showroom, so,
You do that.
and want something too.
Yes.
I hope all of you are feeling it right now. I hope all of you are. And when it comes to customization, I think so much about like sofas. Like, when are you ever going to walk in and be like, that sofa, perfect, move it in? Like,
Right.
there are so many different things to take into consideration. And I just want to know a little bit, like, how do you break that down for clients? Because I feel like they're just infinite options and like infinite needs of what people need a sofa to do.
I think it's an interesting question, because so many clients, they'll look at a photo and go, that does not look comfortable. I'm like, what's a photo? How can a photo look comfortable or not look comfortable? And bringing them into the showroom is really important.
Right.
And sitting there and having the sit test, and then you can play with the different densities, you can play with different shapes and sizes. And I think that's what's great about working with your team, is because you're allowed to do that. So I think it is visually you see it, but then the client has to touch and feel it and see it. And that's why I think the showroom model is so important today. 'Cause I know a lot of people feel the showrooms are dying. However, people need to touch and feel and see it. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
And do you think that's hard to get your clients to come here, like to come to a showroom, are they game
We
for
make
that?
it we make it fun. We make it
Okay.
interesting. Like, hey, we're going to go on an adventure today. We're going to go see. And we don't walk into a showroom and like let them just go wild. We guide them through it. But I think when you show them, like you said, there's thousands of sofas to look at.
Yeah.
And clients can't, when you see the curved sofa here,
Yes, it's so amazing.
it's a beautiful piece, but it's not built that way. So when you're telling your client that you're doing something custom for them, it's really hard for them to understand it.
Right.
And I think that by coming here, it really does help.
And Tom, how do you approach that customization of?
The sofa.
For a sofa, I think, yeah. Well, I think, first of all, like, furniture that's uncomfortable is just bad design.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Like, what is the point of creating a chair if the chair is uncomfortable? So, but comfort is relative, and people come in all shapes and sizes. And again, I think when you can tell a client that you can make something a little deeper so they sit more comfortably, or sit test something and they say, you know, I just need it to feel softer. Great, fine, we can handle that through fill. We can handle that through a choice of fabric. But I think we usually are very specific about coming into the showroom with a pair of blinders on with a client and saying, look here, touch this, see this, now close your eyes, open them over here, right?
Yeah.
Because I think in this context, let's call them lay people, become blind very quickly if they become overwhelmed and blinded, and they at the end of a day of shopping they see nothing, you know, and remember less.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think if you can say that's the chair, how does it feel on your butt? How does it feel on your back?
And you said butt.
Literally,
Right.
are your
Yeah.
arms in the right place, right? Like, are you leaning
Yeah.
over to rest, or is it supporting you well? And then you can affect change to make it work for them. It's the holy grail.
It's funny, it reminds me of my grandmother had a friend in New Orleans and he had this beautiful house. It was so amazing. And she would always say, hundreds of chairs, not a place to sit.
Right.
It's true. It's true. And then how do you kind of limit people so they can work with everything you could do, but kind of put the blinders on and make sure it's not exhaustion from too many options?
We have a rigorous design process, and when we're designing a collection or a piece, we're like, okay, where's this going to live? Is it a family room piece? Is it a drawing room piece? Is it a living room piece? Is it going to float? Like, what function does it have? You have to think about the functionality and how it plays with all the other pieces, right? So a lot of times we do a lay down test. Like, I'm always like laying on the sofa to see, is my head, you know, then we try, like one of the guys in the design team does it, you know, does it fit you? Do you feel comfortable? Can you spend a Sunday afternoon on it? So.
And then I think in the same ways that people want sofas to be very comfortable and fit all of these needs, like dining tables now have so many functions and different purposes. How do you go about looking at your dining tables that you have out on the floor versus all the different options that you have?
Same, like, is it a double pedestal? Is it going to have a leaf and no leaf? We rarely do a leaf, but we do get custom requests for that, which we, you know, are happy to oblige. You know, is it round? Is it oval? Like, what is the shape? We've had clients that want to use a dining table to play bridge on. And is it two dining tables that become one? So we're playing some more with dining tables too. So you'll see some new iterations in the next couple of years,
And how do you dig into that? I think there are two things here. It's like what maybe a client think they want from a dining table, and then like what are the actualities of how they're going to use it sometimes. How do you like drill into that?
I mean, there's always the basic, you have to eat there, right?
Yeah, right.
And then I think during COVID, it became the office, it became the desk, it became where the kids were studying. So it morphed and it changed, and people are wanting different things about it. And when you're looking at a dining room table, you know, how you put your wrist on it, there's all these things that people are asking for and doing. And formal dining, I think, is not going out, but it feels like it's not as important, the formal dining room. However, it still is the room that people always want. There's not hardly a house that we don't have a dining room in, even if it's within a casual space, we have to have it. So it's really, it's a difficult thing to look at because there's aesthetics, there's the way it looks, the way it feels, and how it functions. Because if you have young children, you want to make sure that it's very practical and it doesn't stain, it doesn't scratch, so there's a lot of things to look at. So it's really probably one of the most important things next to a bed.
Yeah, and family size, right?
Yes.
Like we've
The
had
family, like how many people are you
Right.
actually having here?
I have big family, I don't personally, but people do, and they'll request, you know, I want to see 20 or 25 people at Thanksgiving, and it's happened.
sometimes-
But I also
too.
wanted to see 6 on a Friday
Right.
night.
Right.
Yeah, right.
And when I just, my husband and wife, there's just 2 of us. How do we do that?
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's like it has to morph.
And how do you talk your clients through that too? Especially, I feel like sometimes, like, you know how you live at home, but if it's, you know, a vacation home that you're doing
Right.
somewhere, and what are the expectations
Yeah,
there?
what's the Irish saying? That's chalk and cheese. They're like 2 radically different things. Yeah, I think we also try to make most of our dining rooms have more utility than just for formal dinners. I think the best, especially in urban spaces, the best dining room doubles as a library or a study or, you know, card room.
Yeah.
And for us, the holy grail is the dining table that goes from like a 60-inch diameter to 144 inches long, like that. But that requires a lot of advanced engineering.
Storage.
Yeah, and storage.
Storage.
Lots of leaf storage.
Well, we can't wait to see what you have coming up. And
Yeah, we're excited about
something
it.
that
so.
seats 2 or 20
Yes.
and how you're going to play that magic trick. And we've been talking a lot about like clients' needs and what their wants are. What about how does a setting kind of come into play when it comes to customization? How is where you are, the location, play into how you might tweak a design or make it work more for that space?
Yeah, I think context is everything. And I think there's some pictures floating around up here of a project we did, or a couple of projects that we've done recently in Santa Fe. And we worked with Holly Hunt Furniture extensively on both because the program was to give these, fairly authentic and well-designed adobes a personality that went beyond kind of cliched Southwestern design. And I think context is everything. You can pull something that looks so clean and simple and beautiful out of the showroom here in a contemporary setting and put it in an adobe house, and it turns it's sculptural. Mm-hmm. And it's the classic, the classic mix that opposites, there's energy in opposites, right? And with the right fabric and the right context, that stuff, I thought, it came off really beautifully in an adobe with heavy timber ceilings. So for me, it's setting context and creating. You can take these pieces and dress them 9 different ways in order to make them appropriate, whether we're working in a traditional interior or a more contemporary interior, whether it's rustic, whether it's mountain or ocean. I think there's real flexibility in that, but it just comes down to it's ultimately the mix, right?
Right.
It's the chair, but what does the chair sit next to?
And it's obviously scale is really important because you'll see something at a table and a client will say, I love this table, it's spectacular, but this table sits 10 people and yours is only going to seat 4. So you have to be able to adapt it that way. And I think that's the thing is in the context of where it sits, and like Tom said, it's very adaptable, but scale has to be important because things do change when you put it in larger or smaller spaces. We had a client come in and she showed me a cut sheet. She goes, I want this as my dining room table, but it was a coffee table. So we had to work with the design team to put that together. So things can adjust and adapt. However, it has to fit within the space. I think that's what a lot of people who don't work with designers, they'll buy something, like you think about rooms to go, they buy it and they stick it in the room, but it doesn't fit. So I think that is what we do as a profession, is we have to adapt and change to make sure that it's within the right context and scale.
And I love the idea also of artisans and what these handmade pieces, really individual talents can make a space personalized, unique. No one else has this because there's only one ever made. And you work with a lot of artisans here at Holly.
Yeah.
Who are some of your favorites? Who do you like?
Christian Estugavier, and and he's got a very strong point of view, and there'll be customer requests that come in that he'll just say no to, and say or advise that I don't think that this is the right thing to do. And it's really great because it engages our designers in a conversation, and they're like, oh wow, he's saying try this instead, which is really cool. Jeremy Winterbert, who blows glass. Like in LA, I wanted to hang white, pure white clouds, and I asked him not to put the gold veining in it, and he did. So those are those kind of things that those artists and artisans do, and they're happy to do it, but sometimes they'll tell you when it's not right too.
Yeah, a real conversation and dialogue.
Yeah.
And how about for you, Martin? Who are some artisans that you're working with or you've worked with that have created something really special?
Well, I'm going to do a little self-plug here. When we started Sheer, our rug company, Holly was our first representation here in Chicago, so we have a 10-year history here. And the artisans that we work with in India, Nepal, and South America and China have been terrific. And it truly is, if we talk about a rug is truly something that is 100% customable to what you want. Scale, size, proportion, texture, and working with you guys. So I think working with an artisan, and what we do as a product designer, besides just an interior designer, is working with those different artisans across the globe, and really they're the ones who inspire us. We go on a trip, we have ideas, but when we see the weavers and what they're doing, they are truly the artisans that inspire us as designers to do that.
Absolutely.
So that's why I like working with those people. And then, within that context of other designers, that furniture manufacturers, I think that who really kind of inspire us is sometimes they're artists, and especially Pietro Simonelli. I don't know if you guys know who he is. He folds fabric, and his grandmother folded fabric for Chanel. He is really a true inspiration as well. And we use him not only for our textiles and window treatment, now we're starting to do screens with him. So I think he's another amazing, inspiring designer out there that pushes us to new limits.
And Tom, any artisans that you've worked with that are really...
I'm like the worst person in the world for name recognition. My entire staff knows that. My memory is entirely visual. So I could point to the things that are my favorites, but I'm always like, what's that guy's name?
Yeah.
What's my brother's name? For me, I think one of the most joyous things we do as designers is to work with artisans to create new things. And I'm sure it's much the same for Martin, but our process is usually when we need something special to engage first with the artisan that we think their DNA matches the goal or the aesthetic. And then to me, the greatest thing is to be able to sit down with them first to hash out what the idea is. So it's like meet first, talk second, draw third. And I think there's great, out of that also comes great relationships. And I think that's one of the most beautiful parts of what we do as designers is curate all these interesting relationships with interesting people who are really doing beautiful work.
And mutual respect.
Yeah,
That's really
yeah.
important.
I think if you're going to approach someone who's
Yeah.
really a master at their art, you do it with humility, and you ask permission,
Right.
and also define interest, because there are also a lot of artists who are, and I don't throw any shade on them, who are just not interested in custom commissions.
Right.
And I understand that I will gladly say that I will never commission another painting on behalf of a client again. Because
Dangerous territory.
I have never had
Yeah.
I've never had a good situation out of that. And you can be hundreds of thousands of dollars into a painting, and the client's like, it doesn't have the spark of the one that I really thought that really brought me to this artist.
Yeah.
And you gotta love a painting. You gotta.
And it, like,
I was
punches you
telling
in
the
the
client,
gut.
you gotta
Yes.
not be able to imagine living without it, right?
Yeah.
And so I think there are also limits to custom in that sense. When you're working with a great artisan, a really great artist, I think that's when sometimes you need to choose all the other stuff around it to be customized.
Yeah. And then, I love that you brought up the artists and commissioning paintings. Gallery, we're all about art, design, coming together. How do you work with your clients when they are coming to you with collections and you're fitting into different spaces? How are you customizing sort of your pieces and fitting your design around a collection when it's there already?
I think that's always a challenge, but it's also the fun part.
Yeah.
I think the hardest part of being a designer when a client comes with absolutely nothing. When they come in not with one piece of art. And it sounds exciting, but if you really think about how hard that is, because you need something to be inspired by, you need something to play with. I have a client who collects tramp art, and we started working with her 23 years ago, and she's one of the renowned tramp art collectors in the United States. And when I saw it at first, I mean, you guys are familiar with tramp art, but it's made out of old cigar boxes. And when I saw it, that was really interesting, but now she has like 300 pieces of it. And we just designed a new home for her in Florida, and we had to bring this collection. But it also makes the house. It makes it specifically, uniquely her house. And when people walk in, everyone goes up to these display cases like, what is this? And they hear what it is. So you then become fond of something at the beginning you may not have liked personally. However, then you get in the DNA of the client, and then you do become part of it. I had a conversation with some young designers. We're in Song House in Florida right now, and we're talking at dinner, and they're like, well, I don't like this, and I don't like this, and I don't like this, and they're talking what they don't like. They didn't say what they like. And I said, how would you feel if I walked into your home and I said, well, I don't like this and I don't like this, and they said, well, that's my taste. And I said, exactly, that's the point. The point is it's the client's personal taste, and what they love, you're not going to love, and I'm going to love, and you guys aren't going to love either, but some part is how you put it together. Even if you don't like it, you know when it's well put together.
Yeah.
You know, because I look at imagery and it's like, oh, this is a beautiful photograph, or it's a beautiful space. I don't really want to live there or be in it. However, you can respect it and admire it.
And Tommy, you had that kind of thing where a client comes to you with a piece of art and it has to go on that wall and you're working around it?
Oh, that's never happened.
Never.
No, yeah, I mean, I think if a client who was a collector whose collection I completely could not comprehend
Yeah.
and thought was hideous, I think I'd probably pass,
Yeah.
honestly. But I've been lucky to have clients who I think, collect some pretty cool stuff.
I mean,
it might not be my cup of tea.
Yeah.
Like Martin said, it might not be my cup of tea, but it's also an opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
I mean, the greatest clients are collectors because they're already passionate about the physical world. And if you're willing to chase down a painting and learn the history of the artist and become a fan of a particular artist or a group of artists, then you're also willing to invest emotionally in the design process. And so, for me, collectors are fantastic clients. And also, like Martin said, the hardest thing I think any designer can ever do is to help a client fall in love with a piece of art. It's just too personal. And
can't make it happen.
yeah, you can't. And the best clients come with collections that they're passionate about, and then you ultimately vibe off that energy. But sometimes it also lets us work with art that's just unbelievable. I have a couple significant collectors, and we're always doing installations and moving collection around for them between multiple houses. And you're saying to the guy who's moving in the sofa, guys, that wall behind you, that's a Rothko.
Yeah.
You got to be really careful.
And Joanna, you do such a wonderful job in your showrooms. Like, art really is such a part of them.
Right.
How do you approach bringing art into the showrooms to really, I just think of that piece when you walk in New York and it just scales that wall.
That was Jeremy Winterbert, and I commissioned him to do that piece for that specific wall. And to what you said earlier about commissioning pieces, I agree. Not in this situation, but we've had issues where clients had ordered pieces commissioned and it didn't work out because they loved what they saw and they didn't love what they got. So in this case, in New York, the Jeremy Winterbird piece was really this, the money piece, I'd call it, when you walk in, right? And he was just so proud of it. And that's how I approach it. Or I'm finding artists all the time. We have an art department, but I'm also like, I'll walk down the street in Paris and I'll see a pop-up shop and I'll go in and talk to this little artist who's sitting in a chair. I'm like, hey, I'm from Australia. Great. Like, would you ever consider
That's
doing
so
anything
cool
in
that
the
you're
US?
doing that.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
So,
I think
yeah,
that's
how
why,
we
and it
find
keeps
people.
it fresh
Yeah,
and
keeps
really
it fresh.
interesting.
And that's really, you have to go and find the young, up and coming
Yeah.
artists.
And you can find them anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
in my coffee shop in my neighborhood, I walked in and
Yeah.
they're always popped up. And I walked in and I fell in love with this guy's art. I met him, his name is Dodd. And I bought his whole collection and it was like $800. And then I showed our photograph and I said, here's your piece, here's your art next to a really significant piece of art. And it made him so proud and happy. And in the end, the client loved that mixture of the two together.
Right.
Like they were collectors, but they didn't really, they aesthetically liked it. And to find some young guy in a coffee shop in Chicago, and now he's down in the Virgin Gorda, is really kind of spectacular and special to have.
Yeah.
So you never know, he may be the next Rothko.
Yeah, you have to
You don't know.
keep your eyes open.
Yes.
Always.
Always. And we've talked about the furniture you put in the room, what you're going to hang on the wall. What about the envelope itself and making that custom when it comes to really interesting finishes on the wall or wallpapers like you have or flooring? Where do those ideas come into the design process for you, and what are some examples that you're particularly enamored with?
And I think, Tom and I, we both do interior architecture, which is, I think, different from a lot of design people. we don't just pick out pretty things. We also we design the envelope.
Yeah.
So that's where we start. Starting with the architecture, starting with the design, and once you get that box made, and then you start adding the finishes, you start adding the different textures to it, and then the furnishings come, and you never really know what's going to inspire it. I mean, that's what's fun about our job. Sometimes it's like, I had a client. The whole inspiration was a jaw like a rooster. I mean, that's what she brought in, and I'm like, what does this mean? She goes, this is how I want the house to feel. So it started with an object.
Mm-hmm.
Other times it starts with an existing architectural envelope, if it's a renovation restoration. And then you start with homes that are from scratch, and they can be anything. So it's really hard, and you never know what the inspiration is going to be. Working in the city with an apartment, we're within a confined box. And I think sometimes the hardest thing is when you have a lot of land and you have a lot of space, because it can be anything you want. But it's also picking the style of what you're looking for. And for us, since we do architecture, it really is creating that backdrop for all the interior parts of it. So inspiration can be, like I said, many things, and we don't have a style, we don't have a look. Just like Tom, we work all over the country, work around the world, and everything's different. You may be dealing with a really traditional historical home or a very modern glass box. So I think it's fun to be working in different genres and different feels of what that could be. So it's like I said, it could be just a photo. It could be an object. So it's really inspired by different things.
I think like Martin, I tend to think about the vessel first. And so that includes like what is the finish of the wall? What is it? What's its color? Usually is it light and dark, and then later on it's color. I always say to clients, like, I see the movie in my head. First it's in black and white.
Oh, interesting.
And then it's almost intense. Yeah. And then later on the movie in my head is in full color and texture, and I can imagine the texture of every pillow and every trim. I wish I could play that movie. That's the holy grail. Maybe AI will get there, that we can play the movie. Yeah. But usually the vessel is described first, and that can include, even whether it's like, is it wallpaper? Is it paneling? Is it plaster? Does it have texture? Is it smooth? Is it shiny? And then those ideas kind of get parked while the rest of the design kind of percolates. And then we come back to the idea of like, okay, so we said this was going to be a backgroundy surface, but it needs to be hand manipulated. Let's talk about whether is it tea paper? Is it metal leaf? We usually work our way backwards into that, and then we finally find a specific. And then, in the case of like wallpaper, I think this is just, we're living in a golden age, where you can dream up almost anything and have it printed. And I'm seeing like, even on Instagram feed, I'm seeing like ridiculously cool digital wallpaper that people are just, I think there's now sites you can like, even lay people can go like create custom wallpaper. It may not be the kind of quality that we're accustomed to, but just as a creative genre, it's just like an amazing time.
You have some amazing textures. A couple that like drag.
Yes, yeah.
I love
But my
those.
job is to inspire, right? So I'm always looking for innovative materials when we're doing a space. So it's like, what's going to jar this group? Like, what are they? What's new for them? So that's kind of how I approach it. Yeah.
That's so cool. Are there any that you have up, or any walls we should go look at, touch, ogle?
I think all the walls have been changed. So
Okay.
and new collections are out. So yeah.
That's
Yeah.
exciting.
We launch 3 times a year.
I was just on a site visit down in Charleston on the beach, and it's an oceanfront house, and right now everything's white. Everything in this house is painted white. The trim's white. Everything is white. However, it is a very colorful house. And I'm talking with the contractor and the builder, and he's like raving about the details and the trim and all this stuff that we're doing. And I'm sitting here going, this is not a white house. But this house could actually be many things. It could go more traditional. It could go more modern. But it was kind of fascinating sitting there with that space, and it made me think like, wow, there's a vision here. There's a whole mood board. Everything's ready to go. But he only saw details. He didn't see what it could be. And when I look at, so the color is really important. Wallpaper is obviously spectacular right now, and you see some of our work. I mean, 10 years ago, I would have probably never done this. This is a young family. They want color. And there's going to be an image here that's at Wolf Point East, which is right out the window here, that we designed the common spaces, and it's a wall covering. And Chris Kennedy, he asked for it, all about the history of Chicago, because of the point where it sits in the Kennedy family owning the mart at the time. And this photo is going to come up, and it's a manipulation of the history of Chicago's river system. But when you see this, it's not going to look anything like a river, and it's a spectacular wall covering that we had a graphic designer work through. So I think by doing that, like Tom said, we can play with so many different things in today's world with wall covering, just besides just wallpaper.
Right.
Yeah.
It changes everything. And when this image comes out, I'll point it out, and you'll see it coming up here shortly. But it was a 100% customizable from the client who wanted something historical, because this was their flagship property for this space. And I'll show that when it comes out. But
So we've talked about all the options out there. I mean, how many options? It's really, really infinite. How do you keep it focused then when there are so many things and you have a deadline and you really have to rein it in? What are some of the techniques that you use to sort of keep things on track and keep things from going off in different tangents? Because I probably need that in my own life in many ways too.
I think, well, we actually use budget.
Yeah.
It's as a guidepost.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, we use budget and timeline, and thankfully things are getting better in terms of delivery of product, and certain companies. I want to give Holly Hunt just a giant shout out for starting to actually inventory fine furniture in a way that it can be obtained on a short schedule. But it ultimately starts with, when does the project have to be delivered? What is our budget? And we understand that the cost of things ebbs and flows throughout a project, but it has a way of giving us blinders. And we need those. I mean, every designer, no matter how experienced or talented, needs to be able to at some point limit the number of opportunities that are available. And we have to do it for our clients. I love giving clients choices within a project, and I'm happy to show them, here's 3 dining chairs. They're all good choices. Mm-hmm. Pick the one that makes you emote. We'll discard the others. I also happen to love the opportunity to learn from a client when they tell me why they don't like something, right? We keep a file. Everything we show to a client that's accepted obviously stays in files. Everything that's declined is retained, so that we can also look back and find patterns in what is driving the client. Because sometimes it's not what you think it is, or it's not what they say it is.
sometimes it comes back.
And sometimes it does come back. Yeah, I did have a client who famously took me through versions A, B, C, D, E, F, J, K on her living room for her Lakeshore Drive apartment. And after K, she said, "I'd like A."
Okay.
And they've never complained about their bill.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
But that's her process, right? But honestly, we use availability and budget really as guideposts to start narrowing the field, and then obviously it's got to support the message of the project, and we try to give each project a brief and a discipline so that we're judging the products that we bring to the table against that in order to kind of vet them through the process.
And Martin, how do you?
And we do it with mood boards. So we start with mood boards, and we always ask our clients to give us 3 words of how you want your house to feel, and they're all different. And it's a fun exercise. The husband and wife, they talk about it, and that mood board and those 3 words are put out at every single project. And it's the very first thing. It's the first thing we look at. So I remind not only the clients, I remind our designers to go back to the mood board. If something starts going sideways, you pull it back out and you look at it. And then as we're developing and we keep layering it, we always bring the mood board and then we keep putting things through. So it's hard to kind of get off track because it's always laid out. And that is a script that we write. So I think that is how we do it. And then obviously budget is another part, because the mood board and the budget go side by side. The budget's not the sexy part, but it's something that's needed because you may go one way on one piece of thing you'll spend a lot of money on, and if a budget is so tight, then you have to play the other way. It's like we always say, it's like Gap with Gucci. You have to kind of play those things together.
Joanna, how do you help designers keep on track for themselves when they come in? And you're like kids in a candy shop in here.
Yes.
There's so many opportunities, options.
For us, it's budget too, but that's not what I focus on with my team. I focus on, we have processes, we're a company, we have budgets, we have timelines, but what I always say is the end result is what makes the difference, and if we're not there, then it's not getting launched or we're not putting it out. So you just have to be very decisive and focused on what you're doing. That's basically it, in a nutshell.
Budget and timeline,
Yeah.
and all the options in the world. But I'd love to take this time to open up to our audience. If you have any questions for our panelists. I can't see everyone. I mean, oh my gosh, there's so many
That's
people.
way deep.
Hey.
They go way back.
Hi, yes.
Have you ever encountered a project that you stepped away from your client and you said, no, thank you?
Yes.
Oh, please elaborate.
It's a hard thing to do. More often than not, I think I have pretty good antenna. We decline projects because we don't think that there's going to be a fit. But occasionally we've also had, after doing one project for a client, and they've come back for a second round on another project, we've had to say we're not available. And it's a really hard thing to do. Breaking up is tough, but I do this job because I love it, and I love the people that I get to work with and the places they take me. And getting stuck with a turd of a client is just, honestly, it's what takes. I mean, these projects take years, and to be stuck with the wrong person, it's got to be just as painful to them as it would be to me. So honestly, I think I'm doing everybody a favor by sometimes saying no, but it's intuition. And I will tell you, I have a secret. We don't have many new client relationships right now. Most of our business is for repeat clients, and that's the real joy, is once you know people and you can be intuitive about the way you're designing for them, and they know that they can give you free rein and they trust you. That's the real joy. But when a new person comes into my life, generally our clients are very wealthy, and the first thing I do is I look at their philanthropy. And if they're not philanthropic, they're not my people. That's it.
I think when you do break up, it's usually mutual. It's rare, like in a relationship, you come in one day to your partner or spouse and say, I hate you, I want to get out of this. You both know it.
You're like, you thought that was good?
Exactly. Like, wait a minute, I thought this is terrific. But, it's not.
And I think I saw another question. Did someone over here have a question? Oh, back there, yes.
I just wanted to ask a question about one of the photos. Something in one of the photos with the arched ceiling you built in.
That's our LA showroom. That's the new LA flagship showroom.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, I want to live there.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. Beautiful.
And I just had a question about the inspiration of that and what right there, if those were light boxes, obviously.
They are. Yes, they are. So the inspiration of this room was to have really a place to showcase artwork and Vladimir Kagan in a space that I felt was respectful of Vladimir. And this is what we did here. We vaulted the ceiling and created a villa and a gallery all in one. So it's really a beautiful space. If you're ever in LA, please go visit. And on the opposite side is a 2-story villa. So it's like a house within a house is what we built.
So you really played with all of them
Yeah.
there. It's interesting. Do you have any other questions? Yes.
I have a question about your custom product lines. I want to know all of the things, so I don't know what the one question is, but is there anything that you could share with us about maybe lessons learned or, if it's fun, about sheer in particular?
Well, Sheer started, someone asked me earlier this week, how did it begin? And it all started with our partnership, Oscar's Bearing Ricer in Chicago. And at the time, their design director or their sales director came and wanted to know if we could just host some of their samples. And I said, well, if I did a whole sample, I want it to be my samples. And then they invited us to go to India. So we went to India and Nepal, and we got excited about it. And it kind of started with that. And we really knew nothing about weaving, we knew nothing about how to make a rug. So it's a long journey to get there. And every new collection is new and different, and you collect different things to do that. And it's working with our vendors, it's working with Holly, like what are your designers wanting, what are we needing? We just came out with an indoor-outdoor line because of the demand of what's happening out there. It's something that when we were designing, it wasn't something we wanted to go into or thought we would, but because of the demand. So there's so many different parts of it. It's a long process, passion of love, and it's been 10 years in the making. When you start from ground zero, and now we've got representation in 14 markets and in different showrooms, so it's just something that takes a lot of time to do. And working with your showrooms is so important because they're the ones that give you the feedback. I mean, we're designers, we know what we like, but that's our aesthetic and our approach. So you need to hear feedback and have forum groups and different people.
Fantastic. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Holly Hunt, Mark, Joanna.